Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Thursday edition of Journalists Hangout on TVC News. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Today on the program, first, civilian governor of Lagos State, Lateef Jakande, dies at 91. Troops kill more Kaduna bandits in Birnin-Gwari area after death of over 40 people in 2 days. And later on the show, Afenifere Pandef welcome Northern Governor's call to end open grazing. I will be hanging out with Asuko James and Lateef Jakande. Journalists Hangout starts now. The camp of the progressives in Nigeria has been depleted the more following the loss of another elder statesman, former governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Jakande. He died at the age of 91. Jakande, an Aoist and a former journalist, was the first civilian governor of Lagos State, governing from 1979 to 1983, when the military seized power. His administration is credited with introducing housing and education programs targeting the poor. As governor, he started a metro line project to facilitate mass transit in the megacity. Yes, we're glad you could join us on today's edition of the program, and that will be our first port of call as I welcome my guests. We have Asuko James to my right here. It's good to have you on the program, and we have Lateef Jakande to my left on the program.
Thank you for having me on your program.
So it's an emotional one for us, not just because it's the first governor of Lagos State, but he's also a comrade. Alhaji Lateef Jakande was a journalist in his early days before he became governor, so we have lost a comrade. And it's even more emotional for Lateef Jakande, and Lateef is going to tell us why, as I start off with him first. So Lateef, what does this loss mean to you?
To me,
yes.
On a personal level, Alhaji Jakande was, first, one of his children, we went to the same primary school. That's Mayflower Junior School in Ikene. So I've always been familiar with the
Jakande family.
Yes. And then he was the first person that gave me a job in journalism, the Tribune. I recall my father and one of my father's friends, I think now late Doyin Ogunade, who had worked with Alhaji Jakande in the past. My father and I went to Mr. Ogunade's house in Surulere, and then from there we went to Elephant House on Broad Street. And we walked in, no ceremonies. We just walked into one large hall, and he was the general manager of Nigeria Tribune at that time. And so Mr. Ogunade told him why we were here. This boy is a student of journalism in University of Lagos Mass Comm Department, and he's looking to do a VAC job. And he said, the only question he asked me was, do you know that they lock journalists up? And I said, yes, I am aware of that. And then the next thing, he just called somebody, and they took me. If you get to Akpongbon, you will see Nigeria Tribune House, or Tribune House, by the Akpongbon, by that bridge. That was where our office was. That was the newsroom was there. Above us was the NIJ, now that is at Ogba. Yes, NIJ was on top of the building. We, the news department, the newsroom, we were downstairs. I recall that I was handed over to somebody called Kesta Olaifa. I don't know if anybody knows him. And so he was the one that was taking this rookie out to the various beats, So for me, it's emotional. It's somebody that. And each time I ran into him, we didn't talk
afterwards.
But I always remembered that this is the man who gave me a break. He didn't have to do it. He could have said, no, there's no chance. But
absolutely,
he gave me a job. And I think I have profited from working with the Nigerian Tribune.
On the spot.
On the spot,
without
yes.
any delays. So
there was no ceremonies. The kind of person he was.
The kind of person he was.
No ceremonies, no nothing. I guess you can always see that also. Even when he became governor, he was accessible, and he still lived in his house. He still lived. He didn't.
He's a Lukweju house.
Yes, he wasn't interested in going to one government house and all that. People still had access to him. I have a friend whose house is just about 2-3 houses to Jakande's house. And I knew that my friend's father used to just walk over and just have discussions, even while Jakande was governor. You know, though to most of his tenure, I was out of the country. But at least I saw the beginning of his tenure as governor. And then as a student in America, I recall there's a program called 60 Minutes when they did a special on Nigeria, but major focus was on Lagos. And I regret to say that 60 Minutes described Alhaji Jakande as a kind of mayor of Lagos State, and I thought that was wrong.
That was a disservice.
That was wrong.
A disservice to him.
I think it was unfair. The man was governor. He carried himself as a governor of the people.
Yeah, we could say that it speaks to, you know, the image of Americans have about Africans when they're in their big and only world,
they're looking for
America.
Tarzan, who is jumping on the street, on the trees and all that.
But let's leave. Let's leave that. We're talking about Alhaji Lateef Jakande today. Leko belongs to another generation.
Yes.
Asukoyo and I belong to another generation. I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I read about Alhaji Lateef Jakande, the biggest impression I have is that, you know, Lagos back then was another day, another time. Is it the same for you as you begin to, you know, recall his legacies, the biggest ones that he left behind and that perhaps no other governor has been able to replicate?
There are a lot of legacies that he left behind, you know. First, he seems to be the only governor in Lagos State that overdid what many cannot even do in 4 years. Because in 4 years, I remember even
in 8 years, he did his in 4 years.
Yes, others do 8 years and they will still complain.
Unable, yeah.
But he did his own 4 years. He knew what he wanted to do. Just like Lincoln said, he had an open government. Anybody that wanted to see him could easily walk in there and share his ideas. But the major thing he wanted to do was housing and education. And I know that in terms of education, I was a beneficiary.
Me too.
You know, you know, because I remember then in primary school, they will always say there's a building, but there's a Jakande building in my primary school, Premier Day Primary School then.
Okay.
You know, so, and then we used to wear khaki, everybody with khaki uniform and all. So, and it was always fun because anywhere you go to, they say, Jakande building. Anywhere you go to, they say is Jakande house, any housing estates. And funny enough, you know, is that he never named all these places by himself to himself.
They just became known as
Jakande because he was, that is why people say when you are living, leave a legacy. So it is his own legacy that was actually speaking for him. Anywhere you go to Surulere, they say, Jakande Estate. You go to Ikorodu,
Mile 2,
Jakande
Estate,
Abeson, Amu Odofin, Ikorodu, you know, anywhere was always Jakande. So it's as if the state itself should just be named Jakande. Because even when you went to primary school, they would say, Jakande, that building was built by Jakande. Because then the party, the UPN then, operated a free education for from primary school to secondary school. So anybody that was going to school was going, you just know that you're not paying anything. Not this one that we are having today. They will tell you free primary school. When you go there, they will still tell you, please tell your parents to bring 5,000 for you to buy one thing or the other. Then it was free, and free was free.
Free was free.
Books,
I
free.
went to Lagos State University between 2001 and 2004, and I remember paying school fees as low as 350 naira.
You understand? You know?
Lagos State University is Alhaji Lateef Jakande's baby creation. Okay.
I paid 10 naira student union fee.
Okay.
Then 30 naira per term, 3 terms, 30 naira, 30 naira, 30 naira. So that's 100 naira in a year. That was my tuition fee.
So how much did you pay in an entire 4 years?
No, it was 3 years.
Okay,
we
3 years.
didn't do JAMB. So it was less than 1,000.
1,000, okay.
You know? So it's...
Minus food.
Okay, you got free food also.
No, we paid.
You paid for food.
Yeah, and it was 45 naira per month.
Per month.
But that was why we did That They Must Go. It used to be 15 naira. When they increased it to 45 naira, we said That They Must Go.
You know, then we used to call him Baba Kekere.
Yes.
You know,
and there's a story behind Baba Kekere, but go ahead.
You know, they did Baba Kekere. Then we were young, we were just saying Baba Kekere. We didn't know that there was someone who actually was called Baba Kekere until when we started growing, oh, so is this man, you know? And he did so many things in Lagos that if we start to count, I'm not sure there's any governor that has, we have governors after him who have done so many things. And we can equally count. But his own in 4 years was something that was amazing.
Phenomenal.
You know, because even the new secretariat that we have now in Alausa was built by him. Because then the secretariat used to be where High Court.
Yes.
But he moved it to Alausa. Same with the House of Assembly. You know, he built the House of Assembly before they now built another one. You know, so there are so many things. But the major one that he could not accomplish because of the military
intervention
was the metro line. And till date, I think if he had completed that project, Lagos should have been matching up with the likes of London and New York today. Because the issue about having to have yellow buses everywhere, what is it called? Bolekajas everywhere, and all that. The metro line would have solved that problem because he would have known that, okay, from Ikorodu to Island, you have a train. From Island to Surulere, you have a train. From Surulere to Island, you know, just like that, it would have connected Lagos. So even a new governor that will be coming will be thinking in that line, you know. And that is what the likes of Fashola and co, after Fashola, Bode, and even Sanwo-Olu, they are even trying to do now. But because times with the new every year as you come,
Naira is weaker now.
Very weak. Unlike that time, you can easily say, okay, this is a bush. You can just clear it and then begin to put rail and things like that. But it's very difficult now because you have to. People would have built there. You will have to start compensating families, and then the delay will always be there. But all in all, there is nothing anybody can say that will not say good about.
But Asuka, I wonder if that's sufficient to hold brief for the succeeding governors. You know, governors who have come after Alhaji Lateef Jakande, because I'm coming to you now, Lekon. Can any governor match the frugality of Alhaji Lateef Jakande, who built more than 30,000 housing units in 4 years?
4 years.
And I was watching my senior colleague. Yori Folarin's program when Alhaji Lateef Jakande celebrated his 90th birthday last year. And those who worked with Alhaji Lateef Jakande spoke about how they paid 6,000 naira for a housing unit. I mean, when Babatunde Fashola was governor, he said he didn't get cement cheap. You know, that was his excuse for the high cost of the housing units in Lagos at the time.
Let's talk about cement.
Let's talk about frugality.
Yes,
I know you want to talk about cement as it relates
I want to take it from I
there.
want to take the frugality from that point of view.
Okay.
When
hold the thought there. We have a caller on the line. Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
good evening.
Good evening. Please, I would like to contribute about the death of Alhaji Lateef Jakande.
You're on already. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Governor of Lagos State. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
These are the people that believe that the governance is about next generation, not next election. We can see the footprint of Alhaji Lateef Jakande everywhere. These are the politicians that believe in building cities and building people. Since then, you can see how long it took him to be a governor and when he left the governance of Lagos State. These are the people that have the footprint of how a city should be and how the city should be in future. You can see the footprint of Alhaji Lateef Jakande from all the four corners of Lagos State. Everywhere. They did not allow the Lagos State to be concentrated in one place. He did not allow Lagos State to be congested in one place. These are the true leaders we want for this country.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Hassan, for your contribution. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. See, when the late Sani Abacha made Lateef Jakande his Minister for Works and Housing, do you know what, when he was actually thinking of housing throughout the country, do you know what he did? He spoke to all the manufacturers of cement. I'm going to, what is your production capacity? What is your maximum? I want to guarantee that the federal government will buy everything from you. Now, let's negotiate. How much? Since I'm guaranteeing you such quantity, there must be what you call economy of large scale. There must be a reduction. Since I'm guaranteeing you so much, everything you produce, I can guarantee that.
Absolutely.
So therefore, price falls down. That's how you guarantee frugality. These are, for him, politics or administration is an art. It's not just policy. People come and start writing on newspaper papers. He is a practical person. I recall, when they were building those so-called funny-looking structures at schools, he said, look, let's get these children to school first. We can talk about fancy millennium buildings later, but this children's education cannot wait. You will not wait until you build fancy, construct fancy buildings. These children are growing old. They are getting out of the age of, so you get them into schools. And then other people can then come and be building nice houses. The same thing with accommodation. Why would you concentrate? See, he spread the housing all over Lagos. That is the point.
All over.
And do you know that is a traffic congestion control measure? When you spread people all over the place, the next thing was for him to have the metro line that will link everywhere to everywhere. And then, of course, I guess the next will have been you have branches of the universities all over the place, branches of polytechnics. You remember LASU was in several places. You remember Lagos Polytechnic was in several places. So those are some of the things he had in mind. I mean, if you go to Anapaja and there is a LASU there, maybe faculty of whatever,
it takes away cost of transportation.
Please, and it takes them off the road. That is how to plan a mega city. I was on a program this morning, on a TV program, and I was telling them that, a phone-in, and I was telling them that, look, if a lot of people, professionals, are working on the Lagos Island, on the VI, as well as Lekki these days, and some of them are living at Ifo, there are vacant buildings now on the Broad Street, vacated by commercial houses. Turn them into accommodation. Make them safe.
Exactly.
So that people who work on the Lagos Island or at Lekki or at VI, give them fantastic accommodation on Broad Street. And then when the metro line is working, listen, I lived in some countries. It took me, before I bought my first car, because it was not necessary. There's subway, there is bus, and if I'm going out to a club on Saturday, I can call a cab. They'll come and pick me in my house, take me to the club. When I'm done, I will call, they come and pick me, bring me back to my house. For about 3 years, I didn't need to buy a car. Because it wasn't necessary.
It wasn't necessary.
It just wasn't necessary.
And that reminds me of another point that Alhaji Lateef Jakande was trying to, or created, not trying to, he created a classless society.
Exactly.
Because according to history, his own children went to the public schools that he created. You're watching Journalists Hangout, and just before At this point, we saw visuals of the home of Alhaji Lateef Jakande, who died today, where family, friends have begun to go to pay condolences. We are told that we have a soundbite from the son of Alhaji Lateef Jakande. Let's hear that, and we'll continue with our discourse.
Yesterday, he validated his membership of the All Progressive Congress yesterday. And this morning, he was up, but he was up with a bit of fever, but nothing really serious. And I think must be about 11. Yeah, I received a call that he was not responding. So he died in his sleep early this morning. So we called the doctors and they confirmed that he's gone.
Yeah, hard as it may be, it also is an announcement that comes with gratitude, the loss of a man who did his bit, and history is, paying him good service, as we are doing on the program today on Journalists Hangout. So as we continue, he created a classless society, and his children and children of the public servants who worked in his administration went to the public schools. Asuko James, why can't we see that in today's
I just feel that it
society?
Why can't we see that? It's because the society has evolved, and then even the politicians, we have allowed them to run short over us. Because even then, everything about politics was more about service. That was when we had people who were into politics not for themselves but for service. And if you notice that everything the late Alhaji did was just for people. And not just people, but for the poor. That's why sometimes I was talking in the newsroom, I was saying, did they even call him Baba or Mekunu at some point? Because everything he did was for the poor. Even there was a time he actually increased tenement rates for those who were living in VI. At least that one, I know I got stories that related to that. People who are living in VI, Lekki Peninsula, increased tenement rates and plot of land. And maybe that is why the place is so expensive now. So make sure that even if you said you are going to the UK to learn, you take your children there. The education in Lagos should at least match up. So even if your children is coming, if they are speaking English, the person or the child in Lagos should be able to understand the child who went to the UK to learn, who went to the US to learn. That was how he was looking at Lagos. But now it is different. Now they now have a class of their own.
Very visible.
You will easily identify who the big man's child is from who is going to a public school.
You can't even find them in the same.
You can't, not even in the
same setting.
Not even in the same. If you go to clubs today, they will always say that side is VIP, and that VIP is usually congested. I don't want to use usually occupied. Congested.
And they sit on the floor.
Oh no! Even in club they have popular side. They have VIPs. So the popular side are for those who are the Mekunus. Then the VIP are for those whose father, they are the ones running
whose fathers have Sunday, according to today's language. Let's take Yakub from Lagos.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you all. Azuko, good evening, and the other gentleman in the studio. Azuko has said it all. We all grew to know Alhaji Lateef Jakande. I personally called him Baba Kekere. And then there's a lot of things to learn from him, especially when we are talking about education. You have said it earlier. And then we are talking about infrastructure in terms of their housing estate. So you can talk it, you can say that because a lot of people living in Alhaji Lateef Jakande estate today, how much they are paying? The mortgage. I don't know, maybe all the incumbent governors throughout the nation, they learn from him. Another thing is this. You see, Alhaji Lateef Jakande, according to his son now, is a true party man. Imagine the man revalidate his voters, his registration member as yesterday. So all what I can say today is that for how what I know what Jannah is not in. The Al-Jannah Firdaus will be his last destination. Thanks and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Yakub from Lagos, and you have ended it well. You're watching Journalists Hangout on TVC News. We're celebrating the life and times of Alhaji Lateef Jakande, first civilian governor of Lagos State, who passed on earlier today. We'll take a break now and be back with more. Stay with us. Yes, it's still Journalists Hangout on TVC News. In the last half hour, just before the break, we're looking at the life and times of Alhaji Lateef Jakande, who passed on earlier today. We'll continue to do that for the next 5 minutes before we move on to our next topic. And through our conversations before the program and during the program, there's been a continuous reference, to Alhaji Lateef Jakande using his moniker Baba Kekere. And a lot of us, even I knew him as Baba Kekere, but many people do not know the history behind that name. I want Lekon to take us through that and another part of his journey for which he was criticized, but would like to put it in proper perspective. Lekon.
Well, among the Yorubas in 1966 or 67, when they had a meeting of the leaders of thought in Ibadan, the Western House of Assembly, Awolowo was elected or selected or nominated to be leader of the Yorubas. Okay? So if you like, that is the Baba of the Yorubas. Some people even liken Awolowo to be the second Oduduwa, among the Yorubas. And so the performance of Jakande, among his UPN peers, the other governors who are also UPN, it's not as if they didn't work, but if you recall, if you know what about Awolowo did as premier of Western region, what he did within 8 years or thereabout.
It was even less.
Harold Wilson, who was Prime Minister of Britain, said Awolowo had the capacity to run Britain if he was the Prime Minister. So, within a very short time, Baba Kekere showed his hands. He demonstrated that some people said privately that they wished that it was Jakande that succeeded Awolowo instead of somebody else. I don't want to mention names. That maybe he would have continued the great things that Awolowo did.
And Baba raised his hands.
Yes, So the performances, as Asuko has been suggesting, is what made people say, this is the next Baba and Baba Kekere. And then when, I don't know if you used to take ferry boats from Lagos to Apapa by the flour mills of Nigeria. Let's say you take a boat, instead of going through traffic, you can take a ferry boat.
Yeah.
Two of those boats that were ferry boats that were introduced by Jakande, one was named Itafaji for Itafaji market. The second one was named Baba Kekere. Baba Kekere.
After Alhaji Lateef.
After Alhaji Jakande.
Wow. Interesting.
So that is, I guess, is the story behind
the story.
Jakande. You wanted to know something else? I've forgotten now.
Yes. Alhaji Lateef Jakande was accused of treasonable felony.
Oh, yes. Well.
And he was incarcerated for 7 years.
For some years,
Let's
yes.
talk about that
They
aspect
didn't complete the 7 years, It was, the 1962, the Western region crisis of 1962 came, it's a long story. So we just, there was fracas in the Western House of Assembly. They were throwing chairs and beating themselves up and all that. And then there was a state of emergency imposed by the federal government, and Dr. Olikoye Majekodume became the administrator of Western region. and the Awolowo, Akintola were put under house arrest. It got to a point that Awolowo was actually moved to Lekki, you know, and restricted to Lekki. People would visit him with boats and all that, you know. The supplies, foodstuff were brought to him by boats and all that. And friends who wanted to see him went there. So
and that place has become a museum of some sorts. Yes. It's important to talk about it here.
So eventually, the Justice Showemimo, I recall, jailed them. Awolowo was accused number 27. You know, he got 10 years, and I think Lateef Jakande got 7 years. There were 17 of them. I mean, eventually, Nahuru, who had run away, was brought back. You know, Ikoku escaped totally. He didn't come back. So many of them were jailed. But thank God, after General Yakubu Gowon became the head of state,
he got presidential pardon.
He got presidential. As a matter of fact,
and it's important to put it in proper historical perspective that they were falsely accused because of the deficit of history, you know, in today's generation.
It's a long time I've read the book. Awolowo was my autobiography by Awu. That is his story. There's a detail of what happened. The court proceedings, what led to what, the entire court proceeding and the sentences, and even his allocators, the statement he made before he was, everything is detailed in that book. It tells you exactly exactly what happened. You know.
We have another call on the line. Kayode from Ebutemeta.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to contribute to it that you don't forget that Lateef Jakande opened up that's what we call Lekki today. That Lekki express road that leads to Epe, it was Lateef Jakande that opened it up because of the housing estate he built at Lekki. They call it Jakande Estate at Lekki. That's what makes that place to be known now. So people are rushing and everything. So the Lateef Jakande that did that express all the way from Obalende down to Epe. So that's our contribution.
Thank you very much.
I need to also say this, that when I started living in Ikeja, my family was living on Lagos Island. When we moved to Ikeja in the 70s, and we were living not far from Fela's house, all except for Unity Road, there was no other road, except for Unity Road, Obakran, and Adedini Jones, and some houses around that line. But from Awolowo Way back to Bankantoni Way, nowhere was tarred. When I came back from America, I realized that Jakande had tarred my street.
Everything.
Tarred everywhere within Ikeja. I left those places, they were brown roads. By the time I came back, they were all tarred.
Talk about responsible governance. And Asuko, your last words as we wrap up on Alhaji Lateef Jakande.
I think most governors who we have now and the ones who are aspiring should find time to learn from this man.
Reflect.
You know, what made him somebody that we can always say, this is the person that actually have a legacy. You know, somebody who thought about the people more than himself. And so everybody, politicians, wherever they are, let them learn from this man. This is someone, even when he left governance, he was still staying in his house in Ilikpeju. And I never heard anybody saying he had one land in Lekki, he has another one somewhere else. Just that place, you know. And most of the things he actually established, from the school to the hospital to the roads, all done by public works. And everything was cheap for the poor. So Nigerian politicians should learn. Not every time they will be bringing excuses that it is not workable. But once it comes to education, they will tell you free education, but parents will still have to cough out money and pay. So sometimes Nigerians will always wonder, what are we enjoying in this government? I enjoyed from Jakande. And I want my children to also enjoy from another politician. I'm not saying everything should be free, but they should be at some level of, you know, things that I can easily say that this is what my children or my children enjoyed from Nigeria.
And you know, it's been said that during his incarceration, he found time to write a book called A Case for Lagos, which was the basis for which Lagos State was created. So perhaps it speaks to how he nurtured the state as governor. We have another call on the line. Alhaji Lateef Jakande deserves the honor of the extra time that we will confer on this segment of the program. So that will be the last caller we'll take on this topic. Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead, you're on.
Yes. I just want to sincerely contribute that the name of Alhaji Jakande should be immortalized in Lagos because the man has lived a legacy that is worthy of emulation. And indeed, if such a person's name is highly immortalized, it will serve as a legacy for us to learn from and live our lives according to the legacy such person has lived. This is my contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Let me just add that when he became governor, the Toyota Crown that he was using while he was general manager of Tribune, that was what he was using as governor.
And beyond.
And beyond.
And I have in fact read that for a long time, Alhaji Lateef Jakande didn't change his house as he maintained his old, his car rather, as he maintained his old
that Toyota Crown. I remember that car very well. That was even when though I didn't stay too long in Nigeria after he became governor, but I remember that was the car he was using.
All right. We are grateful for the legacy he left behind and for a sterling life example that he lived. And he saw rest in peace. We could go on and on about Alhaji Lateef Jakande, but we've exhausted our time for that first topic. And as we continue now, it's been fire for fire over the worsening banditry in Kaduna State, as security agencies mounted resistance to rein in on the terror. Troops of the Nigeria Air Force killed several bandits during airstrikes in Birnin-Gwari local government area and other parts of the state. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, said sustained military operations following recent killing of over 40 people in 5 local government areas of the state within 48 hours has seen the death of many bandits in the area. So, gentlemen, Lekon, first of all, how should this success in military operations be sustained?
I'm careful about this to talk because I'm not sure if somebody is not trying to let us know that, okay, the new service chiefs are working. So I'm very careful to begin to praise anybody. But certainly, that's good job. I mean, according to America's President Ronald Reagan, says you can't argue with success. You can't argue with success.
Can't query results.
Yeah, so we have to recognize that. But I'm wary. I'm very wary. You know, I don't want somebody to start to appear to be working and then suddenly they lapse again. They now start complaining. There's no men. There's no troops. There's no money. There's no equipment. There's no, you know, but having said that, we need to congratulate whoever did that job, you know. But you know that Birnin-Gwari is a very big, massive area,
local government,
you know, and it runs into about 2 states or so. It's not just within, you know, so that forest. So it's not something you just think that, oh, you see, how, let's look at it this way. You cordon off this place, you record success, you leave this one open. Then after you have done, you now say, okay, we have done this job, you now come here. The people will come back here. So there has to be, shall we say, a comprehensive sweep. It's not enough. So I'm not too impressed. I mean, I congratulate them. I mean, but to tell me that you dealt with one local government, that's, I'm sorry, it doesn't, I'm not too impressed. I'd rather you cordon up the entire length and breadth of the area where you have issues and deal with it decisively, once and for all. Because by the time you start leaving room for people to escape, they will leave this place, you say you killed 40 people. I hope you saw the photographs of Sheikh Gumi visiting some bandits in the boondocks somewhere in Zamfara. The report by Professor Yusuf Usman, the executive director or the secretary of NHIS, is that those boys are close to a battalion. And he explained that a battalion means 1,000 men. They could be 13-year-olds, they could be 14-year-olds or whatever, and they were armed to the teeth. That means that the job is not done yet. So it's a total thing. You can't, you can't be opening flanks and say, oh, we dealt with them here. Well, for me, I'm sorry. I need somebody who is thinking about the total issue. Don't tell me about local governments, please. Tell me that this is where they all are. It runs into 7 states, fine. We have covered it and we are going to sweep through. Yes, you are going to avoid killing civilians. But look, there is map. You know the map of this place, that is one. And mapping is one of the major instruments that the military use. You want to know where you are going. So that's number one. Then you have satellite. I hope you remember.
And we have drone technology.
We have drone technology. I hope you remember that how Osama bin Laden was picked up. One of his bodyguards, his chief bodyguard, when he wants to make phone calls, he will go out of town, like in Lagos now, he will go to Mowe and go and make calls, and then destroy the SIM card. But some SIM cards that he or the group had bought from the Pakistani, one of the, they had sent those numbers to the Americans. So when he used one of the SIM cards to call, somebody was listening in the Pentagon. He is talking, and the satellite was beamed on him right there in the desert where he was talking. And they used that to trace him up to his house. And then they now started watching that house for months. When they were ready to move, something held them up. An American was in jail in Pakistan. They negotiated his getting him free before they then moved, and then got him, killed his brother, killed Osama bin Laden.
So surveillance on Birnin must be sustained.
Technology is available. And this area is mapped. I'm sure you've seen Nigeria's political map, Nigeria's physical map. We know where the mountains are, all these things are available. The first thing a soldier will learn is how to read maps. So for you to say you got 40 people in one local government, I'm not too impressed. You have work too, please, don't get there.
You're trying to be careful, Liko. All right, Asuko, I'd like to know if you're taking this bit of news with a pinch or a pack of salt, as Liko is taking his with a pinch of salt. But we must take a break. You're still on to Journalists Hangout on TVC News. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Yes, it's good to have you back. You're still on to Journalists Hangout on TVC News. We've moved from our first topic on the demise of Alhaji Lateef Jakande to the successful military operation against bandits in Birnin Gwari local government area of Kaduna State. So, Asuko, what would make that report believable that indeed our military recorded this success against bandits?
Well, we actually asked that they should change the service chiefs, and they forcefully removed them. Let me use that word.
And they are going to make them ambassadors
now. They want to make them ambassadors. Okay, people have been saying we should remove. We have removed them. We now have another set.
Okay.
Now, this new set of service chiefs, they want to impress. And in impressing, they will have to show us that, okay, we are working. And I want to believe that they are really working. Okay? And just like Nicholas said, I don't want to say because it just came yesterday and they started doing what we wanted them to do. No, because what we want is peace. And in achieving peace, to every Nigerian, what we want is I should be able to say, I'm traveling to so from point A to point B, and nobody should kidnap me. And nobody should call himself a bandit. Nobody should call himself a Boko Haram or a terrorist or whatever. Now, they have done this. It is just 40. Buki, I'm telling you, by the time we leave here, in the next 1 or 2 days, you will hear another story that they've killed another 30. Some of these bandits, where do they stay? Just like you are saying, Sheikh Gumi went to the forest. He met with some people, and they are called
over
bandits.
1,000 people.
They were over 1,000. They were bandits.
Armed to the teeth.
You understand? And the thing is, we saw the pictures. These guys were not just sitting and freeing their hands. They were with weapons. So I think what the service chiefs, the federal government we should be talking about is, what do these bandits really want? What do they want? Or are we just giving criminals the opportunity for them to take our airwaves and then, fool our newspapers with headlines? Because we really need to know. If they are criminals, we take them as criminals. If there's nowhere in the world that you say a bandit is now sitting down somewhere and then somebody will start clapping and say, yes, they have. What is their problem? We need to know their problem. Boko Haram, we know their problem. Even when Niger Delta, they were bombing, we knew their problem. So the federal government and anybody, the federal government should be talking in terms of strength. And when I mean strength, the negotiation, when you are going, you should have something on the table to talk to these people. But you can't tell me that a bandit, a criminal who is somewhere, will now come out. Tell me, what do they want?
And then you
but
give
should
them
you even
money,
be asking
and then
a
you
bandit
give them
what
money,
he wants?
and then you give them money to buy more arms.
Because I don't understand. We have not really sat down to ask ourselves, Sheikh Gumi went to the forest, he came back. What did he achieve? Because if he had said, okay, fine, I've spoken with the bandits, we shouldn't be killing bandits, in quotes. By now, we should be saying,
1 week after.
Yes, because we should be saying, okay, all the bandits in all the forests in Nigeria
have been rounded up.
Yeah, or they have repented. Because even that 1,000, they didn't repent. We didn't hear that they repented.
No.
We didn't hear that they actually dropped their arms. No.
And they are still there.
They are still there in the forest.
And those forests are ungoverned. There's no DPO in those places. Right inside the boondocks.
How do you want to go there? So I think what we should do is the new service chiefs should now be looking at either they will start with the carrot and stick option. You negotiate. If they don't, you go after them. We don't want criminals to be around forests. If you said you are doing your work, you are doing farming or herdsmen or whatever they call them, if you are there, come to the city. Or we are now, anyway, that will be the next topic. Because what we are saying is that we don't want bandits anywhere. And we must take them as bandits, as criminals. We should not begin to show them as if, okay, yeah, we can negotiate with them. Because there will be more bandits. And those bandits, most of them, when we are talking about bandits in Kaduna today, tomorrow there will be another set of another name. They won't call themselves bandits. Maybe in the south, who will call themselves another name, and then from there we'll start another war. Because we need to actually know, okay, fine, these guys, they say they want X, Y, Z. Then the government can now go there, talk to them, and then they will leave. When they are leaving, we see the arms, we see where they were staying, and then from there we can be able to know, okay, if they want a job, we can be able to give them jobs. But this one, we don't even know what they are even asking for. Is it so
difficult to rein in on the bandits in the forest?
It is not.
We've talked about Boko Haram. Government negotiated with Boko Haram. Unofficially, ransom was paid. But after how many years, haven't we learned the lesson that Boko Haram was only empowered with millions of, precious dollars with which has emboldened the insurgents.
Yes, because the thing is, the government should disassociate themselves of giving oxygen to these guys. When once you give them money, they will come out from the forest and they will sit with a prominent person and you say, okay, take so amount of money. You are giving them oxygen. So the best thing, the service chiefs, now we have new ones. I want them to be ruthless, Buki. Because that is what we need, results. If there's banditry anywhere, deal with it. If there's terrorists anywhere, deal with it. Even if it's in my Niger Delta, which, anyway, those ones, they've even calmed down now. Anywhere they are, because we need peace. We have 200 million people, and those 2 million people, even if we have 1 million giving us problem, and the rest of us should be able to say we want peace. Enough is enough.
Absolutely. It would not only be immoral to negotiate with bandits who are also criminals, it would also be dangerous. We could go on and on with our discourse on this, but we must wrap up now.
There's something that you have seen. In Lagos, there are gang wars, area boys,
cultists,
and all that fighting themselves. Let's be extremely careful. So Nigeria will not begin to have warlords all over the country.
Everywhere. So
especially when we have a negligent central government that doesn't seem to know what to do or is interested in doing anything. We have to be very careful.
Yeah, that will be a sure anchor on the program. Thank you for watching. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of the program. You can watch the program on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. We're on YouTube, of course, that has been said. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.